Thank you, Senator Fawcett. Senator Gallacher.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President. I rise to make a contribution in the adjournment debate tonight in respect to a number of very important issues to the great state of South Australia. And, Mr. Acting Deputy President, a lot of the rhetoric that has gone on since the budget, the awful budget handed down in May last year, and decisions made immediately prior to that, I believe need to be placed firmly on the record. Now, in respect to manufacturing, and in particular car manufacturing, according to the Australian Workplace Innovation and Social Research Centre's recently published report, written by Bianca Barbaro and John Spohr and the National Institute of Economic and Industry Research, Australia is set to lose 200,000 jobs in the next 4 years after the closure of the motor vehicle manufacturing. South Australia is set to lose 24,000 jobs at a cost to the South Australian economy of $3.7 billion. The job impact in the local government areas is identified in this report. 4,385 jobs will be lost in the city of Playford. The main suburbs of Playford are Playford and Elizabeth and the surrounding areas. 2,772 jobs will be lost in the Adelaide City Council area. 2,447 jobs will be lost in the Salisbury Council area. 2,352 jobs will be lost in the Port Adelaide Enfield Council area. And these are suburbs, as you well know, Mr. Acting Deputy President, that already suffer from the highest rates of youth unemployment possibly in the whole of Australia. Certainly pockets of them are amongst the highest rates of youth unemployment. And we're now transitioning to many more thousands of people being thrown out of productive, well-paid jobs. The southern suburbs of Adelaide will also be impacted with a loss of 2,042 jobs in Onkaparinga. Charles Sturt will lose 1,881 jobs. West Torrens will lose 1,554 jobs. Marion, 1,554. Norwood, Payneham and St Peters, 629. Tea Tree Gully, 563. So the awful decisions of this government, and they, the economic rationalists put it up there. We've got to do something about the debt. We've got to do something about the budget. Well, these decisions are impacting on decent, hard-working Australians, decent, hard-working South Australians. Now, if we move slightly away from what's happened to what potentially could happen if we don't get some sense into the debate on submarines, according to the Australian Industry and Defence Network's submission to the inquiry into the future of Australia's naval shipbuilding industry, 6,000 people directly and indirectly nearly 15,000 people are employed in that area. According to the South Australian State Government, there are 3,000 jobs in South Australia in shipbuilding and submarines. If the submarines are built in Australia, the economic flow-on will benefit the economy $21 billion. $21 billion. In South Australia, the gross domestic product will be better off by approximately $13 billion. If submarines are built locally, Australia will be better off by 3,000 jobs per year for 40 years. South Australia will be 2,000. Sorry, I'll rephrase. Australia will be better off by 3,000 jobs per year for 40 years, and South Australia will be a great participant in being better off by 2,416 jobs over the next 40 years. So what do we have here? We have a decision that's been made that is crippling employment opportunities in a vast number of suburbs in Adelaide. We have a potential for that to be exacerbated and doubled. And, Mr. Acting Deputy President, if that wasn't enough, under the National Partnership Agreement on certain concession cards and senior card holders, approximately 160,000 pensioners in South Australia will cop it. They'll lose their concession of $190 or $100 for self-funded retirees. These things, compounding on the small state of South Australia, are catastrophic. And let's hope they are catastrophic for these people. Christopher Pyne, the Honourable Christopher Pyne, the Honourable Jamie Briggs, Andrew Southcott, Rowan Ramsey, Tony Passon, Matt Williams, Senator Cory Bernardi, Senator Birmingham, Senator Sean Edwards, Senator Dave Fawcett and Senator Ann Rushton, because I have not heard them advocating for their state. Now, for me, South Australia is first, second, third, fourth and fifth. I don't care who I've got to advocate for or against, whether it's within my own party or in the opposition or in the government ranks. I will be putting South Australia first, and South Australian jobs first, South Australian economic opportunities first, South Australian small businesses first, and let's hope that those members of this place who are not advocating internally, externally and as publicly as they can for a better deal for South Australia do face some sort of penalty. And we do know that from the by-election of Fisher and the by-election in Davenport that there is a mood of continuing anger about this, these consequences that are applying to South Australia. Now, to add insult to injury, the supplementary road funding, only applied in South Australia, has been cut. South Australia's local government manages 11% of the nation's roadwork and has around 7.2% of the nation's population. In 2006, the Commonwealth Grants Commission recommended that South Australia receive 8.9% of road funding, and it has been cut. In order to maintain a fair level of funding, the federal government introduced the supplementary road funding scheme, which brought it up to around 7.9%, John Howard's government. And what we're facing now is a cut in South Australia of around $18 million for this financial year 14-15. And we are at risk of losing $78 million by 2018. And what this actually means is either rates will go up or roads will be unrepaired. You know, in the recent Senate estimates, the Secretary of the Department of Infrastructure and Regional Development, Mr Murdoch, stated that in some situations governments have found it more efficient and economic to allow the paving to go back to gravel rather than maintaining a seal. It would be extremely disappointing if local governments were forced to make considerations like that. And therein lies the question I have. We have members of the executive from South Australia in this coalition government. The Honourable Jamie Briggs is not able to protect his own state with funding that was actually brought in by the Howard government. It's just not been protected. You have councils like Elliston, might have 1,300-odd ratepayers, and they've got thousands of kilometres of roads to maintain. How are they actually going to do it without this supplementary funding? We will have increased risk of road accidents, increased risk of injuries and increased risk of deaths without properly maintained roads. It is an absolute disgrace, and South Australia enjoys the Minister or Assistant Minister in the Honourable Jamie Briggs, who's proved incapable of defending his own patch. And if we're to cap the argument off, we'll lose car manufacturing, we'll lose lots of jobs. We compound unemployment, underprivilege, high youth employment, no opportunity in the northern suburbs. If the same happens with submarines, we double the effect. And where are our South Australians? Where are the South Australians in this federal government advocating for a fair and honest deal for South Australia? Or are they simply advocating for their own promotion within their government? Are they simply doing as, the Honourable Peter Costello said? Are they simply more interested in their own promotion than the promotion of the people that sent them here? That is a serious question that needs to be answered by the South Australian members of the Liberal Party, and it really is a question of whether they have the backbone to stand up for their state as they should do. This is a state's house at the end of the day. And I will always advocate to anybody that South Australia gets a preeminent position in all of this.
Thank you, Senator Gallacher.